9:33 at News Talk 1340 WJRW. I'm Dave Jaconette, and we have in the studio with us John Gonzalez, and on the line with us is John Quinones from ABC News, and he's going to be making an appearance here in Grand Rapids, the Grand Rapids area, for a big fundraiser for Ferris State University, and he's going to be talking about perseverance, which is, I mean, who doesn't love a overcoming odds story? And John is on the line with us right now from, I was going to make an assumption and say New York City, but I don't know where you're calling from.
You're exactly right, yes. I am in New York, and looking forward to my appearance. I mean, talk about perseverance. I grew up in South Texas, in the barrios of San Antonio, and, it was a struggle. So that's the message that I like to bring, especially to college campuses.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's different, the mix that you get on a college campus, if it's diverse enough, you've got all kinds of people who come from different backgrounds. Some maybe have grown up in affluence and really need to, they haven't had that struggle story themselves. Plenty of others in there maybe are scrapping and just trying to get by to get an education, and they know the value of that is what's going to help them change.
Absolutely, and sometimes you need a helping hand, not a handout, but a helping hand. And in my case, I wouldn't have gone to college had it not been for a program called Upward Bound that allowed kids from the inner city who had some promise of making it in college the chance to get advanced placement courses every Saturday of their high school career and every summer of their high school career to prepare you with to better master, things like math and biology and English, which my inner city public school really wasn't doing a good job of doing. In fact, when I would ask my college counselors in junior high about someday going to college, I would be the first generation. No one had obviously gone to college in my family. They would tell me, they would look at me just like any other Latino kid in that school, because it was about 99% Latino. Mm-hmm. They would say, yeah, John, I know you have a dream of going to college, but we're thinking maybe vocational programs like wood shop or metal shop or auto mechanics. And I got that message, over and over again in the 8th, 9th, 10th grade. And my message to kids, college, especially kids of color who are being given that negative message by society, is to not listen to that.
Right.
and don't take no for an answer.
John, in our studio with us is a guy John Gonzalez, and you guys have kind of a shared experience, I guess, in terms of background, and want to bring him in on the conversation, and at the same time remind our listeners that this event coming up is the 15th Annual Ferris Foundation for Excellence Benefit, and it's coming up on Friday, November 1st at DeVos Place in downtown Grand Rapids.
And John, of course, good to talk to you again, my friend.
Yes, good to hear from you again. Hopefully I'll see you there November 1st.
Well, obviously we're excited about you coming to Grand Rapids and to do this great benefit here. Also, I think the listeners might know you because, What Would You Do, which puts, the viewers, they get to see you in operation there and experience firsthand some very uncomfortable situations. But in a sense, it's almost kind of carries on through your message, right? That we all maybe shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
We all do it. That's, experts will tell you that, Hispanics do it, African Americans do it, and of course, white Americans do it. Everyone judges by appearances. We quickly assess someone when we first look at them, either by the color of their skin or the way they're dressed or their social status. And it goes back to our caveman days when we had to do it for our own survival. We had to be able to identify danger. What we have to do now, that's embedded in our DNA, what we have to do now is remind ourselves that we're not living in those caveman days anymore and see our fellow human beings as people with the same wants and desires as we do. And if we do that, if we stop ourselves from making quick assumptions, then we're less likely to stereotype or be racist in our interpretation of those people. But I love doing the show because, often you hear folks say, well, they're playing the race card. That doesn't really happen. If you're a black person, you're in a store, in a fancy store in New York, people don't follow you around. Well, when we put hidden cameras on it, we show you that that's exactly what happens. People will say, no one will tell someone to speak English, otherwise they'll kick him out of the store. They don't do that. Well, when we put hidden cameras on it with What Would You Do, you see that happen, and you see customers who will agree with the racist guy behind the counter saying, yes, you should learn English. He's not going to serve you here. Maybe you should go to Taco Bell. Now, having said that, we also see the beauty in the human spirit, folks who step up and do some remarkable things.
Well, John, I think Dave mentioned it a few seconds ago that you and I share very similar backgrounds. I've forgotten the part of your story, though. I mean, you're from San Antonio originally, but you spent some time in Michigan and even in the cherry fields. Now, I don't want to take a lot of your thunder of your presentation you're going to give on November 1st here as part of the Ferris presentation for the foundation. But can you tell us a little bit about that experience coming up to Traverse City?
Sure. You know, as I said, my dad was a janitor, and it was tough. It was tough going for a while. And then he was laid off from his job at a high school in San Antonio. So we had no money. And like many other Mexican-American families in South Texas, we joined a caravan of migrant farm workers that were leaving San Antonio in these trucks for the summer to go pick crops up north. And there were like 8 trucks, and we piled in the back of one of them, my 2 sisters and me and my father and mother, and we journeyed all the way up to Northport, Michigan, which is just north of Traverse City, as I recall. I was 13 years old. We did it just one summer, but boy, what a lesson that was. And we picked cherries for 75 cents a bucket. I remember it would take me 2 hours to fill a little bucket. But we did that, and then we followed the crops down to Ohio in July, where we picked tomatoes outside of Toledo, Ohio. And that went much better. I could do 100 bushels of tomatoes for 35 cents a bushel. That was $35. It taught me a lot about the value of the family coming together to support each other. And that got us over the hump that summer. And I remember my father, Bruno, looking down on me as I was on the ground looking at a row of tomato plants that to a 13-year-old boy's eyes must have looked like it went on for miles and miles. And my father saying, look, do you want to do this for the rest of your life, or do you really want to try to get an education? It was a no-brainer, of course. And that's where I went back to San Antonio that summer, late that summer, and went back to school to the 10th grade and applied for Upward Bound, this wonderful government program that was part of the war on poverty by the Kennedy and Johnson administrations back in the 70s. And the theory was very simple. The way out of poverty is through education. You know, what a wonderful thought. Thanks to Upward Bound, I was able then to get into college.
And you took advantage of those opportunities all along the way. That's really I guess one of the themes you'll be stressing is take advantage of the opportunities and don't say no. John Quinones is with us here on 1340 WJRW in Grand Rapids. Again, given the opportunity, what would you do is the theme of the Ferris Foundation's 2013 event coming up on November 1st, 5:30 dinner, and kind of a gathering, and then the dinner at 7 and the program at 8. Tickets are available if you contact Ferris State University. Contact Kim Erickson, 231-591-2365. And we'll have that number for you if you want to call us, and we'll pass that along to you. John, you've been around the globe covering events. Of course, you do this great What Would You Do? And those are, it's real-life situations, as you mentioned, and catching people in the act of being people and kind of going along with, our evolutionary DNA. What have you enjoyed covering the most and doing the most, and is there a dream out there that you're still chasing?
The dream will always be chased. I love telling stories, and whenever a big story breaks, I obviously jealously want to be there, even if I'm busy doing something else. And we don't travel as much as we used to when I started working for ABC, for Peter Jennings. I covered Latin America. The reason I was hired was to go to Central America and go to war zones in Nicaragua and El Salvador and Panama. And it's really ironic. I mean, he was a kid who used to get punished for speaking Spanish in school write. They would punish us because they wanted us to speak English. And ironically, I wind up getting a network television job precisely because I speak Spanish.
It's an asset. It's an asset, not a hindrance, yeah.
Exactly. So you turn, lemons into lemonade, right? And I did. I mean, of course, it was wonderful. So I love telling stories, and I, as a part of Prime Time and 2020, I got a chance to go to Africa and interview Jane Goodall, and we did a story on the rainforest in the Congo, and we did another story about the blood diamonds in Sierra Leone, Africa. I went to Vietnam to do a story on an orphanage, and in Colombia, South America, to do another story on another orphanage, in Haiti to do this piece on modern-day slavery in the sugarcane fields, actually, of the Dominican Republic. Haitian children doing those stories. So I love telling those stories. I just more recently covered the Chilean miners' disaster down in Chile when all these men were trapped, 33 men for 69 days in that dungeon of a mine. And I got the first interview with the first person who spoke coming out of those mines. Those are the stories that I love to do. What Would You Do is also a wonderful treat. I've gotten more notoriety from doing this show than I did from getting 7 National Emmy Awards for all the other journalism that I did, because people watch it, and it's my own show. And now, by the way, we're bringing it back. We're filming new scenarios as we speak. And What Would You Do will be back on December 3rd, Tuesday nights at 9, December 3rd, then for 3 weeks in December, then December 10th and December 17th. And then we'll take a break for the holidays, and ABC will bring us back in 2014 for a bunch more shows. I love doing both. So to answer your question, I just want to continue doing pieces for 2020, for Nightline, for World News Tonight. I was just in Ecuador for World News Tonight, the Diane Sawyer broadcast, and Good Morning America, all the ABC programs that I can feed stories to. I will keep fighting to get those kinds of stories on the air.
John, one last thing here. I know you don't have a lot of time. We really appreciate you spending a few moments with us here and the Grand Rapids listeners. Where are we at as America? Where are we at when it comes to to discrimination? And have we made big leaps and bounds? Have we been able to move forward as a country, do you think? Or when I see stories in the national news that you kind of go, wait, I thought we were past this point. Where do you think we're at?
I think we've made tremendous strides. I think the playing field has been leveled dramatically over the last couple of decades. Especially the young understand issues like interracial marriage and relationships. They understand gay rights. They abhor gay bashing, bullying among. I think young people get it more than we do because they've grown in a world. They've grown up in a world where it's a much smaller world, not only because of television, but because of the internet. And so now kids in Montana, if you happen to be gay, and unlike 30 years ago, you can find support online, and you see how other folks deal with things. I don't know. To me, it seems like the young folks get it much more than the older folks. So I'm very inspired by them, and I think, yes, the playing field has been leveled. But that doesn't mean that we're done. We have some work to do still. And yes, when you hear those stories that we cover from time to time, and in fact we turn them into What Would You Do scenarios often, because that's where we get many of our ideas come right from the headlines. It reminds us that there's some work to be done, and it does vary by geography, even though the world is smaller. Reactions we get to a particular scenario, let's say it's about whether it's some of them controversial, immigration or abortion or gay marriage, the reactions we might get in New York will differ from the reactions we might get in the heartland of America. So geography figures in, and that's why we love to take What Would You Do on the road sometimes to places like Oklahoma and Missouri and Texas, Amarillo, Texas, as we did a few months ago, to get a sense of what it's like. So again, this is a long-winded way of saying lots of progress has been made, but there is